Keith here with the He's with Soul, which is a grassroots organization. Bob and I are on the Stark Town board, which is a committee, I should say, which is designed. We've been studying this the proposal for the Badger Coulee since last fall, and there's a lot of places that we can go in the discussion, but I think it'd be really good for everybody's got stuff on their mind, questions, or they wouldn't be in here. So let's start off with some questions. And this is Tom Krieger, who is the father of the soul of the Kickapoo, who started the grassroots group associated with the Arrow and Western Line. There's a lot of experience with community work and having an effective voice. So we have. Anyone want to start off?
Can I ask about property values? You had talked about the visual impact and about electromagnetic field that comes off affecting cattle and other issues. One thing I asked about ATC is about metal buildings and fences near the line that they have to be grounded, so they have to make a bunch of adjustments. Can you address that on property values?
It is true. If you are in close proximity to a high voltage transmission line and you have a conductor such as metal, that conductor must be grounded. Now, initially, my experience has been ATC will do the initial grounding for you. However, the maintenance of that is going to be your responsibility. Do be warned that any fencing, any metal fencing that is running parallel to any electrical line has the capacity of picking up the charge and running it down the line. There is a stray voltage issue that is involved. And unless that is grounded, that charge can severely burn you, your cattle, your horse, your livestock, or anything of that sort. Any metal buildings in close proximity also needs to be grounded, and that should be tested first by a qualified electrician to know what degree of grounding, and they can actually test the area to see what type of voltage that the building may be picking up. That's also an issue to be concerned about. Within the easement alone, unless you get special permission from someone like ATC, that you are not allowed to build any structure whatsoever in the easement of their easement, nor are you allowed to put in any type of metal, not metal, but any water improvements, septic systems, holding ponds, things of this sort are also typically not allowed within an easement area.
When you say close proximity, what can you give more of an answer?
Well, that depends on the height of the lines, and by proximity, it's not only the proximity to the easement, but the actual proximity from the line to whatever source you're measuring. Typically, if you're within about 100-some feet, you should have some concern.
They also said if you were farming the land where the transmission line pole was, that if you were driving a tractor, that you would have to grade a chain.
Okay, there is some truth to that. You do have to realize there are several concerns in agricultural land. Through the years, we have learned many of these. I myself am not a farmer. I have worked in the valuation of farms for over 26 years. So, though I'm not a farmer, I've been on farms a lot. And I listen to the farmers, and then we investigate their statements to see for the validity, to understand an appraisal. What we're trying to do is we're trying to extract a fact and then measure that fact to predict an event such as a value change. So there is a truth to the matter in dealing, again, close proximity to high voltage transmission lines. You have to be concerned about arcing, and that is a natural phenomenon that happens with a high voltage transmission line, where you can have an arc coming off of the line and arcing to some type of other conductor. That can be metal, it can be moist wood on a tree, it can be many different things. There's 7 to 15 feet you can occur an arc. A typical power line is going to be about 24 feet on a low sag from the ground level up. Some of your agricultural equipment now can range up to about 15 feet in height. So you're narrowing that gap pretty close to sometimes 8 to 10 feet, where you're going to be in close proximity to that power line. You also have to be concerned of other issues. Other issues that we have discovered is that many agricultural equipment today are run and operated and controlled by microchips. And some of those microchips have failed, being in constant exposure to high voltage transmission lines, that they have to be repaired. We have experienced choppers with their metal detectors not operating correctly in close proximity to high voltage transmission lines, particularly when they're running in a parallel to them. And then obviously you either have to turn off the chopper or turn off the alarm, one or the other, to take your chances. There have been microchip failures in tractors and high-end tractors as well. Manufacturers of the GPS units, which many agricultural people are utilizing today, will not guarantee the accuracy within 200 feet of a high voltage transmission line. You can still use them, but they're no longer guaranteeing that they'll be accurate. So these are some issues to be concerned about, also by ATC's own admission, and both many courts, depositions, and other things by their own engineers, that they highly recommend never to park any equipment, machinery, or things of that sort under the power line or in close proximity of 50 feet. They have a restriction of not fueling such equipment within that close proximity or within the easement as well for the potential dangers.
Could you address the different property value drops, like the visual, if it's coming across your land directly, if it's just on the edge of your land, how much that affects the property values? You gave a bunch of different percentages before.
Sure. Understand that every property is unique, and the appraiser looks at each property uniquely. So they're all going to have different impacts, but generally our studies have shown that the most minimal or least invasive type of easement would be nipping a corner of, say, a 40-acre parcel or 20-acre parcel. That would have a low of maybe 5% loss of overall property damage, overall property loss, meaning the entire property value, all the way to a maximum we've seen 30 to 40% when it's cutting through a diagonal. And again, this depends on the property, its use, and other issues, and the other aesthetics that are dealing with the property. Typically what we have found is that a diagonal cut from corner to corner is the most damaging of all. You have that type of easement. That typically is going to range, in your 25 up to 35% range. You also have the bisection, that's east to west, cutting it in half. That's the second worst. That typically can run anywhere from 18% on the low end up to 25-28% on the high end. Then you're looking at the, if it's in the front yard, if you will, running along the road. It depends the use of the property, and of course you need to access under these power lines at all times at this point. That can have a 15 up to 20 to 25%. Then you have another location which would be running down the fence lines. That's the quarter line or the sideline, either one. Typically you're looking at right around 15%, sometimes up to 20, sometimes as low as 12% on those. Again, these are ranges that our impact studies have picked up. That's a good guideline, but what the appraiser really tries to do is look for actual comparable sales. One of the problems in this whole area is going to be finding those comparable sales. But what they want to do is find a sale that had a similar power line, a 345 kV with like 100-foot towers on the property that has sold recently, and then they can compare that to an equal property after maybe some adjustments to see if there is a difference in value. Of course, if this area does not have a 345 kV line, then there are only two options left to the appraiser. One is to find a smaller line and then make adequate adjustments. The second option is to find sales outside of this market area or use studies as their guidelines. So those would be the guidelines as far as percentages and damages. The placement of a residence and other buildings also is a direct derivative of distance and view. So if you're a quarter mile away, you may not have as great of an impact as your whole property value. And people say, well, I don't understand that. My whole property value devalued is at 15%, but my house, which is a quarter mile away, you're saying is only, say, 5%. How can that be? The answer is this, that it's 15% for the entire property, but we are recognizing that in the far corners, the furthest distance, it may be 0. But as you get closer and closer